Hello, everybody. Welcome to the PixelPlay Podcast, episode number 95. So good, so not live, because apparently nothing wants to work. Kaylan's camera is even worse, hence why you see... actually, sorry, that's not Kaylan. That is clearly 1960s J. Jonah Jameson joining us here on this episode.
I want Spider-Man!
And also, for some reason, my OBS does not want to stream and record at the same time anymore, so that's not happening anymore. So we are just offline recording as per usual, so you guys are just getting the normal upload on Wednesday as we normally sit here. But I am joined, of course, by, like I said, J. Jonah Jameson from the 1960s cartoon, and Jin and Chris. How's everybody doing on this totally not live episode now, apparently, that we just found out literally before we went, I guess, live? Offline? What's the word for that?
I got a new haircut for nothing, apparently.
I'm great. I've always wanted to do a podcast with J. Jonah, so this is like a big moment for me.
Yeah, this has been a real dream of mine. Bucket list crossed, done.
Yeah, that's it. I can die happy. Today's the day.
Today.
Well, today's the day that I cross off the final bucket list item, so I'm good. For the rest of my life, no more accomplishments needed. I did it.
That was your final bucket list item?
Oh yeah. It was pretty easy
real
list.
quick. So I was looking up. Spider-Man was created in 1962. Where does Stan Lee go giving J. Jonah Jameson a Hitler stash in 1962? I feel like that's kind of like, I was like, oh yeah, if it happened in the 30s, whatever, that was the style at the time. But like, what was he thinking at this point? Like, I feel like it was kind of ruined. This look was kind of ruined after like 1939. Like, what's going on here?
Look, I think the flat buzz, I don't know what you call it, the flat top, like that kind of balances it out.
I mean, it's iconic now. Like, that's J. Jonah Jameson. But I mean, there was two people who had that mustache: Charlie Chaplin and Hitler. And at 1962, we kind of knew where the dice fell on that mustache.
But then a third party entered the ring, and then all was fine.
Stan Lee woke up that morning and he just looked in the mirror and he said, "Today we're taking it back," and he was determined to take that away from Hitler.
I mean, either that or this Google image that I found online to put something over top of Kaylan's ridiculously over-delayed camera might have been an edit. I have no idea.
No, it's the Stan Lee story.
Maybe it was one of those things. Stan Lee was working late at night one day, and he's like, you know what? He's working on it. He's like, I'm too tired. I'm going to finish this in the morning, and just totally forgot about it.
That is the best one. That's the story.
I'll do it in the morning, and just the next morning, just something chaotic happened. Car broke down. He didn't have time, and he just totally forgot about that. Yeah, you had to go back and finish the mustache.
I mean, obviously, I'm just going to note here, if you're listening to this in audio, you have no idea what's happening at this point, to which case, why aren't you subscribed to the YouTube channel? Boom!
Yeah. I think we pretty much covered it. I have my camera sucks, and I basically have a picture of J. Jonah Jameson banging his desk asking for Spider-Man pictures. You're all caught up.
Yeah, that's about all you need to know. But otherwise, what you do need to know on this show is we have a heck of a show for you in the way that, stories are what they are, and that they're mostly either uninteresting or nothing. So we're going to talk about games that came out back 10 years ago. We're going to go through, I think Kaylan, you have a list of the most anticipated games going into 2013, which would be very interesting to get into. We're also going to talk a little bit more about the PlayStation VR 2 now that it's going to be out. I mean, technically at the time of this show airing on YouTube, the PSVR 2 will officially be out, because I think the release date's the 22nd. But we're going to talk about, early thoughts now that we've seen reviews of it, and talking about things like the affordability and such. And then obviously at the end, my review streak is still intact. Call me video game reviewing Goldberg. I am still going, baby, because I got Hogwarts Legacy in the can. We will be talking about a non-spoiler for the time being, because Chris has not finished it yet. Kaylan has yet to even started if he's going to. We probably will do a show of some sort, whether it's related to this another podcast, or if we just do a standalone, we'll talk about spoilers and stuff, because obviously a game that big, it needs a little bit of extra attention based on the story, and it is an open world game, so there's got to be story in there, otherwise what was the 40 hours worth? But we will talk about non-spoiler reviews towards the end of the show. But first, Kaylan, tell us about all the amazing things that would have been coming out in 2013, so that we can figure out what was good, what was bad, and probably in a lot of these cases would never materialized at all.
Yeah, so thanks, Adam. Yeah, with Atomic Heart's coming out, I was really anticipating this game, really excited for it, and uh, womp womp, it's a bit of a mixed bag on that one. So I was just scouring the internet, and I was looking back, and I stumbled across an article from Business Insider from January 4th, 2013. The 25 most anticipated video games of 2013. And I thought this would be a fun exercise for us, one, to remember which games came out, because I think you're going to be surprised at what games are now 10 years old, and also just kind of have a laugh and see which ones they were looking forward to, which ones may have been flops, which one may have been dope, and which ones maybe kind of flew under the radar in terms of popularity. So, with that being said, let's just go right through. So, I think we can kind of talk about this and kind of see, like, did the games live up to the hype? Are they getting remembered as much as they were anticipated, or they kind of come, have their moment, and then get forgotten? So, yeah, with that being said, let's jump in. First one we have is Anarchy Reigns. This was for the Xbox 360, PS3, and it came out in January. Does anyone ever remember Anarchy Reigns? This is from Platinum Games.
I remember the name.
I'm gonna look up the cover. Was this the one where it had like the chicken jeans? No, that's a different one. No, I'm thinking.
It almost has like a Bayonetta look to it, or not a Bayonetta. It has like almost a Borderlands kind of look to it.
Okay, it is still like a sexualized game, but no, I think it had like a Velvet in the name or something, but nah, that's.
I think it's Bulletstorm.
No, it's not Bulletstorm. I'll think of it at some point.
Clearly, this game did not live up to the anticipated hype, so we'll move on from there. Totally forgotten. Devil May Cry, the Devil May Cry DMC Devil May Cry. This is the one where they go for the emo look for Dante. Anyone play this game? Anyone remember this? I feel like this one kind of doesn't have a good reputation.
Before that, I did figure out what game I was talking about. It was called Velvet Assassin. It was also bad.
Oh, I liked Velvet Assassin.
But DMC, I've never actually played a Devil May Cry game at all.
Okay. Yeah, me neither.
I played some back on PS2. I have the DMC game. It's in my Steam backlog because it was like $6. And I still haven't even opened it. So I don't think the hype was very strong.
I mean, like, I probably would have played it back in the PS2 days, but at that point in my gaming life, I was just so deep focused on JRPGs that brain didn't consider for even a moment that a game like Devil May Cry was going to be anything. Like, if it was going to be one of the major games, like, even back in those days, like, Jak and Daxter never played them. Ratchet and Clank honestly never played them. Sly Cooper was one of the only ones that I was into, so.
Missing out.
Apparently.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of JRPGs, next one, Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch. This one came out on the 25th of January for PlayStation 3.
A lot of people love that game. I honestly didn't get it, but I also think that's because I played it way later in its life cycle that it probably just felt archaic going forward, because I played like the remaster when they did it for PlayStation 4. And that was probably, I think that was last year that I tried it. So that was 9 years too late. So because it just felt like, don't get me wrong, the visuals are freaking amazing because it's basically a Studio Ghibli video game.
Yeah.
But like it plays like an older Pokemon game, and it's not as interesting going forward compared to like if I probably had played that right at the time it launched, it probably would have been much better. Especially back in those days, because there weren't a lot of good JRPGs back then. There was a rough patch where JRPGs were not great in the PS3, Xbox 360 days.
No, they really weren't. Yeah, I did play a bit of that one. And I had a friend who played like 90 hours of it. And I definitely think at the time it definitely lived up to the hype. Mostly because of it looking like a Studio Ghibli film. Like the art style, I think, is what sold everybody.
Yeah, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It looked like, Spirited Away meets Pokemon. It did exactly that.
Yeah. And the fact it got a remaster, I guess, kind of speaks that it obviously held up.
So just to give you guys some information, mentioning that it looks like a Studio Ghibli film, Level 5 actually did team up with the animation house Studio Ghibli to make this game, which is why you get that vibe from it.
That makes a lot of sense. Spot on makes a lot of sense.
Almost like it totally works. Next one was Grid 2 was supposed to come out in 2013. Kind of feel like Grid 2 just kind of came and went. I don't know even. I didn't play it too much. I didn't remember it being huge.
Did they put a car on stage when they showed the game off? Because that's probably why it didn't do well.
Wait, if they did or if they didn't?
Well, did they?
I don't know.
That the answer is probably no then, because we don't make the joke like we do at Forza. So it failed.
This hasn't happened yet on our like as of time of writing this article.
That's
It didn't
true.
happen yet,
That
so we don't
isn't
know.
the gimmick at E3 yet.
Yeah.
They should have started it.
Next one,
Then they could have been the real famous ones.
next one we had was Dead Space 3. This one was released or had a release date of February 8th. I kind of feel like this was like the weakest of the Dead Space and kind of moved away from the horror elements of it.
Yeah, I think it was
I don't
also
think
around
that
that time that like horror games were starting to kind of slow down a bit again, because a lot of horror games around that era started to shift away from the more action-based ones, because Resident Evil at that time was just a shell of its former self. So you started seeing games like Amnesia start to really put things into perspective on what horror games actually were. So we started seeing more of an emphasis on those kind of games, and those were the ones that started making big waves. Whereas games like Dead Space, I think at that time were starting to get played out a little bit too much, of action horror being the thing that everybody was doing for a little while.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm gonna play Dead Space for the first time probably this week. I'm gonna finish up Far Cry and then play Dead Space. So I'm excited.
Have fun with that. I played the original, and that scared the shit out of me now. I can only imagine what a remastered, more realistic version of that's going to look like. Nope. I'm still trying to convince myself to go play Resident Evil 2.
Yeah, I'm halfway into, not even halfway, like 4 hours into Resident Evil 2. And I'm like, scary. So I don't know how I'm going to do Dead Space. I want to because it looks really good, but also terrifying.
Yeah. Next one is Aliens Colonial Marines. Had a release date of February 15th. How'd this one hold up, guys?
I'm pretty sure that failed.
That was the game that everybody was like, so this is clearly going to be like game of the year potential, like one of the best licensed games. And then, my God, if there was ever a case, like that was the point that people started saying, okay, we can't even trust gameplay trailers anymore. Because that game looked nothing like the trailers they showed off for it.
If I remember correctly, like, wasn't there a thing where some guy went in and like got the source code or something like that and managed to fix it by just like doing like one simple change to the code or something?
That might have been the case, but I don't remember the story though. I remember the story itself. I can't remember what game it was, but man, like I remember so many of my friends being so stoked for that game, and then every single one of them went, what did I just spend this money on? Holy shit. And I was sitting there in the background just playing like my Persona games, being like, you guys are so stupid.
Yeah, so I'm not reading the whole article here, but yeah, there is something saying that like a years old one-letter typo led to Aliens Colonial Marine weird AI. So apparently there's this thing.
Oh, right, it was the AI issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So apparently, like, there was just something that was misspelt, and that threw the whole thing off.
Because it's unrelated, but I also remember that there was the one game, I can't think of, it might have been Bulletstorm, it might have been something else, but there was a game that like the file for the game was so big and people were like, the hell, why is this so big? And it was because they forgot to compress the audio files. So like 70% of the game's like size was just uncompressed like FLAC audio files that were just so freaking massive. So that one little change. And there was also the story, wasn't it with GTA 5 or something, that somebody figured out how to fix like an issue by just slightly altering something?
Yeah, they slightly altered the code and it cut the load time.
Yeah, that was right, the loading screens.
Yeah.
It's always weird how, like, again, this is why, like, most games that are buggy messes, that if I'm ever going to play, like, say, Cyberpunk when Steam puts it under 60%, I'm totally going to get that, because modders solve all the major problems way faster than anyone else ever does. Because, like, with the Aliens thing, just switching one slight thing and all of a sudden the game was far less dog shit kind of tells the whole story of just, like, how easy it is for a publisher to just go, you know what, good enough, push it out, we need the money now. And then QA could have just quickly gone over a couple more things and it could have fixed so much.
Yeah.
Just for the record, Cyberpunk is ready to play. You're just missing out, Adam.
No, Steam's not put it below 60%. Sorry. They keep toying with 50. I'm like, nope, 60. I got to see that under $30.
He's committed.
Next game we have is Crysis 3. Kind of feel like this one just kind of came and went. I feel like the first Crysis was always lauded as like this amazing graphical game. I don't think it was ever known for anything more than just being a pretty game. And I feel like by this point, like games had kind of caught up with Crysis.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'd say games have caught up with Crisis because Crisis had like a remake or a remaster, and it does not blow away like it used to.
I'm legitimately at the point now that I don't think anybody actually remembers anything about Crisis aside from the meme that that's what they tested PCs with. Because I don't know anybody that's like super into Crisis and talks about what that game did. Everybody just looks at it as like, but does it run Crisis?
I think the meme became more than the game. Yes,
Because I've played the original game, a little bit of it. I don't see what the big deal was. It was one of those games that like felt like it was more of a showcase of what graphics cards back in those days could do, instead of it being like a really fleshed out like video game that was actually like worth your time. I mean, sure, I'm sure there's some people that really like that game, but like I never understood what the big hype was about it, aside from again just how pretty it was.
Yeah.
I played Crisis 1 and 2, but I was late to the game. I played Crisis 2 like 2 years ago. So
yeah, I played Crisis 2 like a while ago, and it was like, it was fine, but it didn't hold me.
No.
This one I have nothing with, but you guys might. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance.
I wish people would like that game more because that game is so stupid and fun. I actually need to go replay that because I didn't play the entire way through because I probably shiny think something else because I didn't play Rising until well after its life cycle, and I'm sure just something shiny on the PS4 came out and I went, "Ooh, I want that now," and then walked away.
Yeah.
But like I enjoy that game. That game is everything that I like about super cheesy like anime-esque games where like, I mean, for God's sakes, as Raiden, you're going around and you can just keep rapidly swinging your sword around until it's like you freaking you've Dragon Ball Z, like you just cut Frieza in 1,000 pieces. Like I love that. It's such a good game for that, and it knows that it's campy as shit. It's when Kojima gets to really just go, okay, I'm not even gonna try to be serious at all in this story. We're just going stupid. Like this is my Saints Row, and it was great.
Yeah, no offense. Like Kojima never really had like, I'm sticking to reality. He was always off the walls and like batshit crazy.
Yes, but this was when he literally did not try to even stay within the lines. This was just literally like, all right, this is just going to be dumb all the way through. We're not even going to try to make sense.
He's not only is he not coloring in the lines anymore, he's not even coloring in the coloring book.
He's making up colors as he goes.
I love it. Yeah.
Next one that they were excited for. This one had a March ETA. Tomb Raider. This is the Tomb Raider reboot.
Okay, I was about to say it had been a while since we've gone through this list, and we weren't getting to any that were like that was really good. Okay, well there's one that I would think is like actually pretty decent. The reboot was really good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I've still yet to play the other two. I tried to get around starting Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and again, same thing. Something shiny popped up, and I just kind of distanced away from it.
I feel like that whole trilogy is like solid.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I played through the trilogy, and after I played the first one, the other two games were like day of release. Like I had to get them and play them to continue. Like solid games.
There's one element of this game that I always remember, like going down a river, and like if you screw up, like you get impaled, and I'm just like, whoa! Like it was something I was not expecting.
Yeah, that game needed to chill a little bit on that front, but
No, it was perfect. I died 5 times in a row in there because the first time I wasn't expecting it, and then I did it 2 more times to see it again, and then I actually tried and I still failed 2 more times.
And you go full ragdoll when like as soon as you get just like flailing in the river. Yeah. It's funny because like that game, like Lara is like this archaeologist and she kills someone for the first time, and like it's interesting that they like show her like going through the mental processes of like, I just killed someone, and then 2 seconds later she's like, I now have a taste for blood, let's go, and just has no problem killing anyone else.
So she'd fit in very well with Hogwarts Legacy. I mean, what? We're not talking about that yet. Never mind.
It fits. It's just what happens. It only takes one. Yeah. Your second kill is always easy, apparently.
So, funny story. My wife and I went to a wedding at one point. It was just for like a friend, and they just did a small wedding. We were honored that we were like one of the few people. But like we wrapped up, like we just did like a dinner out of the keg. Like it was like a civil ceremony kind of thing at City Hall. It was awesome. And I remember we were driving home, and it was like probably like 6 or 7. Like we just did like an early dinner and call it a day, whatever. We're driving home, and this is when the Tomb Raider movie came out. And I remember we're driving home, and I'm like, hey, do you want to go to the movies? And she's like, yeah. And so she's in like a wedding dress. I'm in a suit, and we're just in the theater watching Tomb Raider like on a Saturday night. It was so fun.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Here's one that I forgot came out in 2013. God of War Ascension. Now let me read to you the description that they have here. Ascension has been most notable for the introduction of online multiplayer. Multiplayer in God of War? Has the world gone mad? We shall see, but Sony Santa Monica has a 100% hit rate with these series, so we expect familiar excellence. The single-player campaign serves a prequel to the entire franchise as Kratos kickstarts his celestial feud with Ares. This one was a dud.
Was that the one on PSP?
I played like the demo. No, this was the one on PS3.
That was another
PS3.
game?
Yeah, there's 4 God of Wars on the PS3.
I don't remember that one.
I remember it, but have never played it.
No, I played the demo and I'm like, this is garbage. And I didn't play it. So like this was like at the height of like everything had to have multiplayer, and there was like a God of War capture the like King of the Hill style kind of thing. I don't really know. And it just wasn't good. It was terrible. Like I played the demo and I'm like, I'm not paying for this at all.
Does everybody play as Kratos? Like, who else do you play as in the multiplayer?
I think you all play as like iterations of Kratos.
Oh my god, that is horrible.
Yeah. So like they just put way too much time and focus onto it, and the story also didn't make sense. I think this is at the point where like Kratos was kind of done in terms of like the old like high school kind of macho fantasy boy kind of thing, and they needed to switch, and I'm glad that they did, because like this was already starting to feel tired in 2013.
I mean, I was tired of it after like a couple hours when I played the original, and that's why I never got into the trilogy. But yeah, like just watching the footage here, like I'm thinking like, man, like I'm sure this was fun back in the day, but I'm so glad that we moved on to something different, because it's worked so much better in the end for them.
And it'd be 5 years till we see Kratos again.
Now, granted, we're saying that because we know that it went very well. If it actually bombed, then we'd be having a different conversation. But that's not the case.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, sure.
This one was not one I played because I'm a huge Sony pony, but Gears of War Judgment. Did you guys play that?
That was the last Gears that I played. It was okay. Like, that was the point. Same with God of War, where I think, like, again, the over-the-top macho stuff was gone, because Gears of War 3 basically finalized a lot of stuff. So when they made another game, I believe it's Baird who's the main character in this one, who's one of the more party members that you have in the original trilogy. Yeah, and, like, it was still Baird decent.
Yeah, I never played. The first Gears I played was Gears 5, and it's still the only one I've played. So
yeah, like it wasn't a bad game, but I'm not gonna sit here and say that it was like some revolutionary thing that changed the series. Like, that was the point where I think it needed a break, and obviously it did take a sort of sabbatical until Gears 4 when they popped it back in. I mean, it hasn't really had like a true point where it's calmed down. It's definitely been like Microsoft's like insistent, like, no, this is still really good, keep playing it. And those who really like it still really like it. It's kind of like, I guess, a third-person shooter version of Dynasty Warriors, where it's slightly altered, but it's mostly still sort of the same way, but people still dig it for what it is. I think it's still like fun to play in bursts, but like I can't imagine getting super into it now. And Judgment was kind of that point where I'm like, yeah, I think I'm done with this series for a little while until they reinvent it. And they still haven't at this point, so I guess I'm still at that point of like, meh.
Yeah, I think I like Gears 5 multiplayer so much because it's my first Gears, so I definitely don't have any burnout for the series.
Yeah, I wonder how you think about it with 4 games in already.
Yeah. Probably I would do it to see the story, but then I would only play the multiplayer of the most recent one. I feel like maybe that's also kind of what the multiplayer is like. It's like Call of Duty. People get the new one just so they have the most up-to-date online version.
I think I don't think they have, but if they did a remastering of the original trilogy just so people could go back and play those at better fidelity and 60 frames, I think that would be really cool to see, because I think that original trilogy story is worth looking at. It is pretty decent. Like, there is some pretty emotional stuff in those games, especially considering that it was supposedly like this super macho, aggressive, like chainsaw motherfuckers to death game, and yet there's still some pretty heavy shit in there too.
For me, the thing I always think of when I think of Gears of War is that Mad World trailer, like when the first one came out. Like, that is one of, I think, the most iconic
very
game trailers
effective
of all time.
Yeah,
it was so good. Yeah. Next one on the most anticipated. This one had a March 29th release, BioShock Infinite.
Oh.
Yep, that is a big one. I personally never finished it because I don't know what it was. Something didn't click for me the same way that the first two did. Maybe it was the setting. maybe just at that point the controls just weren't working the way that I wanted to. Maybe the power-ups weren't the way they were. I still enjoyed the time that I spent with it, but it didn't catch me to a point of finishing it. But like, yeah, no, there were very few people that thought that that game was not good. Like that game was a pretty universally praised game.
Oh yeah.
Well,
That
go ahead.
go ahead, Kayla. Go ahead, go.
I was gonna say one of the things I feel with this game is that they were coming off of BioShock 2, which did not have a huge reception. So for them, I think there was a little bit of doubt in the BioShock 3, if I remember correctly, but it was a stellar game. I don't think it captured as well as BioShock the original did. I think you kind of lost a little bit of that mystery because everyone's like, there's still people there and stuff. Like it's kind of like, it doesn't have that collapse like BioShock 1 did, and it didn't have as much mystery. But I still liked it. Although I didn't really love the ending on this one. Like it got kind of weird at the end.
I loved BioShock Infinite, and I actually had built my first PC in like so many, like 20 years, in 2013. Well, so not 20 years, like 15 years. But either way, I built a new PC and was moving away from consoles for a little bit. And that was the first AAA game that I played. And like with the PC experience, with the higher frame rates and all that, and the game blew me away. I mean, that also probably is because of the whole PC versus console at the time. But yeah, like the game, the story, everything. And I hadn't actually played BioShock 1 yet. So I played that. I was blown away by it. And then immediately on Steam grabbed BioShock 1 for like $2 and then played through that. And I was like, oh, now I understand it even more. But I've still never played BioShock 2 because I don't want to ruin my BioShock experience. And I feel like 2 will just like not go over well.
Yeah.
I don't understand what the hate was for BioShock 2 nearly as much. Like it got really not well received, and I'm like, it's not like it was bad. It was more of the same. I think that's probably what a lot of people thought, is like it didn't really do anything too different. But I mean, I played through both the original two games, and I love both of them. I thought they were great games for what they were. But I guess at the time too, we're also talking like this is like late teens, early 20s Radical, who is way less jaded than he is now. So who knows? But
yeah. Next one was actually a big game that you guys probably have heard of. Grand Theft Auto 5. So good that Rockstar said we don't have to make games anymore.
I thought that game came out just recently.
No, that was the fourth release.
Yeah, basically it's Grand Theft Auto and Skyrim were just having a competition for who could release the most. But I remember how huge when this game got released. Like people booked time off work. Like I had a customer I was talking to, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm getting this for my husband because he won't shut up about it, and like he's booked a whole day off just to play it." Like it was huge when it got released.
Oh yeah. That was massive, huge release. Everybody I knew, even like I have two brother-in-laws, and neither of them, especially at the time, were really gamers, and they both had the game, and it was like the second game they owned on a console. That was it. But they both got Grand Theft Auto, and like 80 hours later, they were like, "Oh, have you played this game?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I'm playing it, but why are you? What is happening?" But yeah, like everybody jumped on that. And it was, I mean, it was fantastic. So it does hold up for sure. Like the single player, I mean.
Yeah, and that was a game too that like finally had. Well, I mean, the last game GTA 4 had multiplayer, but it wasn't nearly to the extent that obviously we saw now with GTA 5's online. And obviously it had a really rocky start when it finally came out, because it didn't even launch when the game first came out, which honestly I thought was the smarter decision anyway, because it gives people time to do the story first before the online. In some ways I wish Call of Duty would do that, but that would just mean them turning off the multiplayer for like, I don't know, 2 days. But like with GTA 5, like it worked to their advantage that it gave people the chance to go through the single player campaign, because it is really good. So it had that time for people to get their teeth sunk into it. And then when the online came in, well, we don't talk about like the first month of that because it was pretty rough. I remember
it was not even that. It was like 6 months. It was not just short. It was a long time before like online got good.
In terms of like even getting its footing, like the first day, I remember trying so many times to get in, and like the weird things you would have to do to finally get past like that first tutorial, like the amount of options you would set, trying to get yourself in an instance where nobody else was in so they couldn't ruin the connection. Like there were so many things on that initial time getting in. And then you finally get in there. There wasn't a whole lot to do, but at that point it was like the early days of it, so you're trying to figure out what it was worth. And then finally you started seeing heists come into play, and then we started seeing really what it became to. It took, about a year before we really saw like what it was going to mean going forward, and it just kept getting better. Now I know people make the joke of just how much money people ended up spending in it over time because of what it was, but if you still just didn't want to spend any money at all, you got a pretty decent online setting as time went on with that. There was a lot offered.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because I don't think I've ever spent money in it, but I've spent a lot of time in it.
Yeah, no, I never did. Also, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I did some cheating back then, like glitching the system to make it seem like cars were, being sold for much bigger than what they were worth. And thankfully, Count didn't get banned for that, because I guess it wasn't technically hacking. It was just taking over like just something in the game that you could just kind of game a bit just to get things better. Because back then too, getting cash was really difficult. Now it's a lot easier to do. Like as long as you get that early bit of cash to start like a business in the online, you can start to make money faster if you spend time. It takes a lot of time, and you got to know like what to do and how to do it effectively. But like it's not nearly as difficult as in that first year of making money so you could buy the stuff. It was ridiculous if you wanted to get some of the faster cars in the early days. So you kind of had to game the system.
Remember, Adam, when we were talking about like how big GTA was, and like we were talking about that GTA Plus, you could do like a monthly subscription to GTA.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Did anything ever come of that?
I don't think so. I don't think anything ever. Well, wait.
I bet you it's out there, and it's just no one talks about it or probably even uses it.
Well, yeah, I guess I would have to play the game to really.
I'm seeing a news article here. November 3rd, GTA Plus is only available for PS. Yeah, so it's still a thing. Huh.
That's what it is.
How's
Okay.
that
Well,
tough?
I think by that
right.
point, the only people that was really meaning anything for like the few that are still keeping up with it.
Yeah, I think that's a little late for that. They could have done that maybe a couple.
I mean,
years
it's not
ago.
a little late, because the amount of audience that they still had and retained that would still be willing to spend money on it, they would still make their money. So they're still going to do something with it. It's just their way of being like, hey, let's just see if we can take another couple bucks out of people every month.
Yeah. Next one is one that surprised me. I had never had this on my radar, and as soon as the reviews came out, I bought it the next day. The Last of Us. So, as you guys know, this is my favorite game of all time. I had no idea about this game coming out. Like, it was not on my radar. I didn't care. I didn't like zombie games. I completely on my radar. And then the reviews came out and just raving about it. And I went out and bought it, and it's became my favorite game of all time.
Yeah, it's worth it. I mean, I only played it for the first time last year, but holy heck, yeah. Like, it's an incredible game. I think Adam's issue is he's too afraid to play something awesome.
No comment. Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying shit. I didn't say anything.
Not weeb enough for him.
Come on, man! It's super weeb.
To be fair, I don't even like weeb shit that's super depressing either. So a lot of people are like, "Why don't you like shows like Evangelion?" I'm like, have you seen how friggin' dark and depressing Evangelion is? There's a reason why most mech anime don't jive well with me. They're generally pretty depressing.
All right, I'll fire through just a couple of these. We'll just do a couple more. Beyond Two Souls. I felt like this one was a dud.
I mean,
oh yeah,
it was all right. I played it. I enjoyed it. I mean, obviously, it's weird now, because if you play it now, you're realizing that it's Elliot Page before Elliot Page. But it's just one of those things where like it was in the same way that like LA Noire was really cool for the facial expressions that it had there.
No.
It was also kind of the same for Beyond Two Souls, and we saw was there a joke there that I didn't hear?
No, I was just saying, and like, no, LA Noire was not good and not cool. Like the facial structure, like thing was stupid. It did not work at all.
Ooh, that's a hot take.
Yeah, that's why I started laughing, because I've heard Adam talk about it, how much he loved it. So I'm like,
oh, that's a hot take.
I'll go get some popcorn and you guys hang out.
But in the same vein,
it's such a shame. It's such a shame that my camera's not working right now, because I would literally do like, it'd be like, is the person lying? They just look like this, and like I'm just squinting my face and just like it's making like Chris, do a face for me right now. Like, yeah, are they lying? Who knows? It's so dumb.
Okay, aside from that, I thought it was really impressive, like how like it genuinely felt like they were like back in those days, like that was pretty crazy for facial motion capture. Because like most of the time you saw what we always see, which is like what you see in Skyrim, where it's just static and like lips and eyes kind of moving to vaguely look like people are talking to you. Whereas now, like, well, apart from games like Mass Effect Andromeda, that it couldn't figure out how to do that part right, apparently. But like most games now can handle that pretty well, as we've seen with games like obviously the newest Horizon and God of War and stuff like that now, where it's definitely so much better than it was. I thought L.A. Noire was pretty cool for this time. But back to Beyond Two Souls. I mean, it was just really cool seeing, I guess, celebrities in there, like seeing Elliot Page and Willem Dafoe, and having like visually seeing, you know, major actors. Now we won't talk about Kevin Spacey and others that have done other things in turn, but it was just one of those things. It's like, oh, that's neat. So and so is part of this project. That's kind of cool. And then played the game and went, that was all right, I guess. I mean, David Cage games in general have always been like, they're okay. Which is why the new Star Wars game that they're doing, I'm kind of weirded out by, because I'm like, okay, that's what we need. Another okay Star Wars game.
You just walk around and you press the button. R2D2.
I'm just, oh no. Can it be that game, but it's just C-3PO and be like, oh no, oh god. And that's just the entire game.
I'd buy it. Day one.
A couple more here. This one was probably the biggest disappointment, I think, for 2013. So I want to talk if in the scheme of things, if it is as bad as it was received. Watch Dogs. This one had a huge E3 demonstration in 2012. Everyone was blown away, and then it came out and everyone was kind of like, womp womp. So with the hindsight of 2023, was Watch Dogs a bad game?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And it hurts so bad to say that.
See,
because
I liked it. I didn't.
It was a good concept. It just, I don't know if it translated well for the first game. Like,
it was cool
to still work on it
for the first 3 hours until you realized that's all the game had, and then all you had left was a story that was very bad, and a main character who is one of the most unlikable main characters I think I've ever played a game of.
See, I liked it. I like the dark kind of like cyber, like not cyberpunk, but like the dark like tone of it. I felt like Watch Dogs 2 is a better game.
Yes.
But I hated the characters in Watch Dogs 2. Like, I feel like I like the tone of Watch Dogs better than Watch Dogs 2.
Just don't play Legion. It's even worse.
It's all right. It's fine. It's disposable. Two others here that I had. I had one for Splinter Cell Blacklist, and I'm curious because Chris, I know you're a big Splinter Cell fan. I don't know where you fall on this, but what did you think of Blacklist? Because we had just come off of Conviction, which was a huge departure from the game, and we got Blacklist. What were your thoughts on that one?
Actually, I never played Blacklist. I never went back to the series after Conviction.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I want to. I would go back now. I don't know where to find it. It's probably on Steam.
It's on Steam.
Yeah,
probably. I liked it. It didn't. It felt a little bit more actiony than it did like espionage stealth game, but I thought it was okay.
I legitimately don't remember which Splinter Cell game I've actually played. I think it might be Conviction, because it's the only one that I ever actually finished to completion.
Yeah. And then the other one that they didn't mention on this anticipated list, but I think was worth mentioning for 2013 was Assassin's Creed Black Flag. So I don't know if this was one that was like kind of, because I know Assassin's Creed 3 was kind of once again felt like a dud, so I don't know how people were feeling about Black Flag, but Black Flag now is I think regarded as probably the best pirate game of all time. I'd say it is. I think it's definitely probably the best pirate game we have, but it's still a so-so Assassin's Creed. Like if you're looking for an Assassin's Creed story, it sucks. But as a pirate game, it's primo.
I mean, it's
no, Adam, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's the last time that I think Assassin's Creed was truly good to me, and then it's just either been okay or I don't care anymore levels now. But that was like the last time that I think I truly enjoyed one of those games.
Yeah, I thought like it was a great pirate game, like going around the boat and doing all the pirate stuff. I thought that was a lot of fun. But at the time, I was very into Assassin's Creed because Assassin's Creed 1 all the way up to 3. 3 was different, but I still liked, especially the modern day story. Like I loved the actual overarching story that was in those original games. And the third one was like the ending of the modern story. And then all of a sudden they're like, we're making another one. And the modern day story was just, you're a person working at the bad guy's place. And you just kind of work there and you're a normal person. And then there's like one thing that happens in the end where it's like, oh no, something from the old games might be in the computer. And then it's like it ends. And I was like, we didn't even need this modern day crap. This wasn't even needed. Like, what is happening here? Like the Assassin's Creed story of it kind of just, it's again where they started to kind of put that to the side and they're like, let's just make another game and put the Assassin's Creed logo on it because that'll sell. Because we can't just call this Skull and Bones because no one will buy it.
Oh, wait.
Exactly.
I guess it'd have to be out, though, for us to find out.
This is true.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about Assassin's Creed before on the show. Like, I think, honestly, like, the Abstergo stuff could have been interesting, but they did such a terrible job with it that now I don't ever want to see it again because I don't think they can.
Modern day stuff is garbage. I've always said just make it an endless kind of story of like, hey, throughout history is a struggle between these two groups. That's all you need to know. There's none of this animus BS, future, past crap, space. No, that's stupid.
Yeah. If we're talking like the Apples of Eden stuff, I think that's different. I like just the idea of like Templars and Assassins always existed, but there was no like metaphysical item. I think it was really cool with the idea that it was still going on in the present day, and I think that could have been told well. But then it got into like the weird sci-fi stuff, and then it was like, all right, you lost me. I was just enjoying the escaping this research prison and trying to run away and maybe fight back someday against, I guess, you know, the evil Templar of, I guess, I don't know, like Templar Amazon that we're fighting against here. But instead, you know, you decided to bring in all of this like religious stuff that, you know, exists or maybe doesn't exist. And then we get into like metaphysical space beings. And I'm like, all right, you could have stopped about 10% the way that you got there.
Yeah, I really liked it, but only up until the third game. After that, when the modern day story kind of ended, I was like, okay, cool. I get it. I don't really get it, but I like it. It's fine. Then they just
it's all based on some Mind 2012 thing. Like, that's so dumb.
Because that's what everybody was concerned the world was going to end. They were like, hey, let's play into everybody's fear right now. Like the movie 2012. Everybody remember that?
Yeah, if anybody wanted to play that, just play SimCity and just destroy with Godzilla. That's how you do it.
That's actually how it's going to happen. We all know it.
Just gonna throw this out there. We don't want to talk about it, but just funny that it's on this article. One game with no to be confirmed date just announced. Star Wars 1313.
Oh god.
Oh, I got bad news.
That hurts.
I got bad news for you people. 2013 doesn't know what's coming.
I mean, for all we know, it could have been bad too. But hey, that's not to worry about.
That's just us taking a quick look at what games people were excited for 2013. Interesting to see kind of what held up, what didn't, and just seeing what games are like 10 years old now. Like some of these I just forgot about. Like I thought Blacklist was much younger than it actually was. Or it's fun to look back.
Those were younger than I thought. I mean, older than I thought.
I like doing this to Chris every time that we talk about old games. Hey Chris, you know how old Final Fantasy X is now?
It's 22. It hurts.
Well, speaking of 22, we're 1 year removed from 2022. We're now in 2023. That's the best segue I can come up with here. But let's talk about the PSVR 2, which is going to be. Never mind.
Stop for a second.
Speaking of 22.
Stop for a second. There you go. You found it.
Speaking of 22, I figured it out just as we were talking. We're releasing on February 22 of 2023, but 22 is the PSVR 2. There are so many goddamn twos in the sentence. All right, we're going to stop for that.
Done,
that was fantastic. That was fantastic.
I love how you were like, okay, I got a better segue, and then I figured it out subconsciously. There we go.
You took the scenic route, but we got the destination in the end.
Hey, that's how it works around here. But anyways, the PSVR 2 will be out officially tomorrow. It's been in the hands of many people. Specifically, I watched Digital Foundry's video on it. And I know Chris has too. I was super excited for this device. I ain't gonna get it anytime soon because my wallet tells me I can't. But I am definitely interested in seeing where, VR in a more casual sense can go from here. We talked about this so many different times. And I think now with seeing how the tech actually performs, I think it really is now just a matter of the library is going to be the big factor now because the technology is there. The price is a little bit cheaper than the more bigger ones that are like, say, the Oculus or the HT. I think the newest HT Vive is more expensive. So like we're at a point now that I think we're seeing, okay, this is now going to start being the base of where VR gaming can be in terms of its fidelity, Now it's a matter of, okay, can we make this stick? So I want to know what you guys think now that we have this new hardware coming out that's, I guess it should be in the hands of more people, but the price tag is still relatively high for most people.
Relatively. No, it's definitely high. Just pure high price tag. At least, especially in Canada. For me, I think like I'm super excited because I think the technology is like right what I wanted VR to be. I have the PSVR 1, like I think both of you do. And
Hmm.
I remember when I used it, I was like, wow, this is super cool. But I could still tell like the video quality or the resolution quality when using it was a little off. It's still a little blurry. It seems obviously lower than playing on a TV and everything. And when they were showcasing the PSVR 2 with Digital Foundry on that video, um, it was just like it actually was like having a really proper, OLED, great resolution screen right there, and that like the screen door effect. I don't know if anybody else saw this on the PSVR
Hmm.
1. It looked like you were seeing the game through a screen door. I saw that and it bothered the heck out of me. Like sometimes I would be able to like see past it, but I would see it. And apparently that's just like not a thing anymore because the new technology is that much better. The resolution's that much better and all that. I do think it's kind of weird that, okay, I guess I understand it that it's not backwards compatible with the games from PSVR 1, but it's just because the games need an update for a higher resolution and stuff like that. So it just doesn't look like a blurry, crappy mess on the new hardware because that would probably just hurt it because it's like, oh, this game looks like crap. And it's not the PSVR 2, it's the old game is set to low settings. It's got to be changed. Tetris Effect, connected or whatever the heck that's called, that was updated and apparently looks amazing. So it is really just up for the developers to update it. I'm surprised Sony didn't take all their first party like Astrobot Rescue Mission and Astro, I don't know, VR Room or whatever all the different
Yeah, the
first party
Playroom.
games were. Yeah, the Playroom. Why they didn't automatically update those and have them just included with launch. Like here's all these new games like the Horizon one and everything. But also any game you already have from PSVR 1, we're going to update all the ones we can that are first party and obviously encourage all the other developers to do the same. And just like, hey, also these will be available to play as well. They're just if you already own them, you already own them. They're just updated to look that much better with the new system. So I am surprised there wasn't more of a push for that. I have to assume there was a reason they did it that way, probably just time and money.
I
But
mean, there
yeah,
are
because
some games that are like Res Infinite, Thumper, Moss 1 and 2. Like there are some that are
yeah,
making the transfer over, but not every one of them.
yeah, and I noticed that they're none of the Sony first party ones. Like they didn't do that. Where I assumed by default they would have been the first ones out the gate. Like update our PSVR 1 games to work on the PSVR 2 because we want to have as much of a library to try and sell this thing because it's over $800 in Canada.
Yeah, like Blood and Truth would have been a great one to sell as like a much more like fit like visually calm because I played through all of that and I loved it, but at the same time, man, is that game rough to look at going like in retrospect. Like it just doesn't look good anymore. I'm sure back then it looked amazing because the technology was in its early stages. Now, I mean, now that we're in the age of PS5 where everything is 60 frames at 1080p minimum, it does like it's almost like when you watch like not HD video on YouTube, it just looks gross. Even though it's not that bad, but it just looks gross in comparison to what we're used to now.
Yeah. Yeah, so and I totally agree. It's going to fully depend on the library, and I mean probably still price for me. I think even at this price, even if there is a bunch of great games that come out, it would be really difficult for me to fork over that amount of money because that's like buying a whole new system. So there would have to be a pretty good stream of games coming out. Like the PS5 has, great games coming out all the time. It made sense to buy it. The PSVR 2 at this price would have to do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're still in that early stage, I think, where PS or not PS VR gaming is still very much a tech gearhead, still like very niche market. I don't think like this is going to be the point where casuals can get into it. Like my goal is that I wanted to see PSVR 2 be like the base going forward so that we can make this more affordable down the line. And I think honestly, if this is like the baseline from here on out, I think that's acceptable enough that we could deal with that. If like say 5 years down the road when this can be like made into something that's like $200-300 American, then this could definitely be something that's more feasible down the line for people if they really want to get into this. And that's assuming the game library also translates. For the time being, though, I think as most people will figure anyway, it's still very much if you have the money, it's definitely a very, very far down the line auxiliary purchase that's like extra for you, because it is more of a well beyond like casual at this point.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I don't think casual gamers will be getting into this at all.
It's something at least on the outside to look at and be like, all right, this is what I could be into 10 years from now. Like it's for those on the outside, it's more of just like, hey, this is what stuff could be when it's more affordable for me 5-10 years down the line. And I think honestly, like that's what's really cool to me too. Because even if I never get to own one of these, it's knowing that we are here now and we're working more to make this affordable, and it's going to continue to get better too, which is just, that's what I wanted to see out of VR gaming. I want to see it become less of a gimmick and more of this could be something we do consistently more often once we figure out how to make it cheaper.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, this is where I'm kind of coming from, is that like I think I would probably argue I'm probably the Sony pony of the group here, that like, and for me, I look at this system and it's like, it's super cool, but I have a lot of concerns. And I bought the first PSVR when it came out on launch day. I loved it. It was a cool idea, but like this one doesn't seem to like do that much difference. It seems like the big difference is like is really the controls and the fact that like you now can move around in the games, which is really neat. But I think the problem is the price, and we've talked about this, and I don't think it's a hot take in any capacity, but like Sony's asking me to put down a lot of money. Like this costs more than it costs for a PS5. And this feels like a secondary console. This feels like a secondary peripheral, right? So they're asking me to pay more than I paid for my primary console. And to me, the experiences seem like experiences, and they don't seem like huge AAA masterpiece games. Like Horizon looks cool and everything like that. But it doesn't feel like this is like AAA kind of high quality. It doesn't look like it does anything super interesting or exciting for me to drop $800. And on the other side, I'm also taking the gamble that Sony is going to support this, because $800 is a lot of money, and I don't remember the PSVR having a lot of huge Sony games that are coming out. Like it was always kind of like a, hey, here's some small cool games, here's some little side experiences that you can get with the game if you buy it. Like I remember like the coolest game I think I ended up playing was Star Wars Squadrons, and that wasn't even like a PlayStation game. So like for them to ask me to bet, like they're asking me to bet $800 that they're going to support this and that they're going to really put an effort into it. I don't see it. Like the way I felt with PSVR is that it was kind of like it came out, they dropped some games for a first little while, but then they like closed, like Gorilla Cambridge, who had made rigs, and they closed like a couple of other like developers who were working on 3D or on VR games. So it was like, I don't know if Sony has the commitment to wait this out, and I worry that it's gonna have the same situation that like PlayStation Vita did. And so like I don't want to be the first one to jump into this at this price. It's not worth it for me to risk it. If it was $300, hell, maybe even like $400, I'd be like, sure, I'll throw some money down, I'll have some fun with it, and then if it doesn't work out, cool. But $800, especially in this economy, is a lot to ask for. And with Sony's track record of kind of, hey, this isn't working, we're gonna kind of dump it. I feel like this is what the VR is gonna have. It feels very gimmicky. It doesn't feel like it's delivering like content that I couldn't get on my PS5. So like I don't know. I don't want to risk that $800 for this.
Yeah, no, I don't think this is something that like a casual gamer is gonna get deep enough into. I think Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I don't even think this is a hardcore gamer. Like I would argue that like I said, I'm a Sony pony. Like it is an easy sell for them to be like, hey, we have something, go buy it. And typically I'm like, sure, whatever. But I feel like this one is just cool. The tech is great and stuff, but it has a very PS3 sort of vibe to it, where it's like, yeah, it probably does have a lot of power under the hood. However, you've priced yourself out of the market, especially for what it does. So
yeah, I kind of agree with you that I don't even think the hardcore is necessarily the market. I don't think it's that. I think it's in the same way that like it's more of a like you're a gearhead, like you're a big tech person where you're not necessarily looking for value so much as you want to be the one that tries these new experiences and see what the future kind of entails. In the same way that if you ever had a friend that had like the Google glasses, like they didn't get it because they thought it was going to be truly amazing. They got it because they wanted to see what the future was going to be. And I think in
I
a large
have
part
never
right now,
seen
VR
anyone
gaming's it is kind of that right now, where I think most people, if they invest into it at the high level, they know that it's not going to be something that's like bang for their buck. This is more to experience what they perceive to be the future. So it's them kind of getting to see stuff that most people don't. Because like if you go to say like one of the few like VR like gaming centers, like there's one near where I live that if I could go to I would, and those are cool experiences, and you pay for a small price of it, and you get to go for like an hour and do it. Whereas these people want to go, I want to get this A at launch, and B, I want to be able to do this whenever I want, so I can show this off, so I can say that I have this tech, and I can see like what the next 5 to 10 years are going to look like. I don't think for any of the three of us, I don't think this is necessarily even designed to be for us so much as it's designed for people that are able to put that money forward because that's what they want to experience. Like I said, I think a lot of us are saying the same things where it's really cool to see, but it's something that I don't think that we can invest in. And I'm okay with that for now, as long as, there's enough of a commitment to stay with it. Or if they don't, in the same way that the Vita didn't stick with it, that somebody like the Nintendo Switch picks up and shows what it could be, or what the Steam Deck down the line ended up being, in the same way that if Sony drops the PSVR 2, what I hope at the very least is that with what this technology does, which is why it's as expensive as it is, like things like being able to actually look at how your pupils are looking at, like Res Infinite, for example, you can activate and shoot things with just by looking at them. That to me is the stuff that can really be something cool down the line. To be able to have a headset that has the visual fidelity that you do, have a camera on so that way you don't lose your place. Like you can just hit the button underneath and be able to actually see the room in front of you instead of potentially tripping over the 5,000 things around your room. A lot of these things that I see that they're doing give me the thought of, hey, it's cool that we're making progress. I can't wait to see what happens when we can all play this. And that's kind of where I'm looking at it now. Like I kind of am in that same boat too, being like, man, like this is way too expensive. I don't know how I feel about it. But at the same time, my brain goes, that's not my problem to have. It's not my money that I'm spending. It's like Sony's the one spending the money to make this. Customers are making the choice to spend their money or not. As long as progress continues with VR gaming, that's all I care about, to be honest.
Yeah.
See, I feel like for me, VR is very much a gimmick. Like I had my VR headset, and it's a weird balance because the games that are like big story, sort of like AAA experience, they're like, these are great, but I'd rather just like play them on the couch. Like it makes me sound like lazy, but when I'm playing video games, I've done it where it's like, oh, I'm standing around and doing stuff, and like it's fun, but eventually I'm like, after a long day of working, I don't want to go and be jumping around and doing VR. I want to sit on my couch and chill out and play video games, not do that. And like I like going back to Star Wars Squadrons, like I love that game, but I had to rearrange my entire house to like put up a chair in front of my TV so that I could sit there, because like the couch was too far, so I had to move this over here. The couch was too low, so I had to lower my camera. Like it's a pain in the ass, and I hope that the PSVR 2 solves that problem. But like, it still sounds like there is some tracking issues, and there's still some issues on that end. Like I don't know, I don't see VR sticking around. Like they're like Half-Life Alyx is pretty much the only game I can think of that people are like, oh man, this is so cool, and I couldn't do this in real life. It's probably that and Beat Saber. Like those are the two that really kind of stick out to me. I don't know. I see this kind of like it'll be something that's not supported. It'll last a couple years, and then pick it up on sale and get the library, and then just call it a day. I think this is gonna be a Vita situation, unless they go the route of what they did with the PS3, where they scale back a lot of the technology and they make a cheaper model. Once some of the technology comes down in price and they're able to cut back some things, like maybe we don't get a 4K resolution or something like that.
Yeah, I definitely could see like everything you're saying there for sure. And I think if this thing was $400 and the games for PSVR 1 that I haven't beaten yet, I could just grab those as well. Like they got updates. I can see myself grabbing this tomorrow. But I do see it as you're saying, where I don't think it's like a new console or it's the new way to game. It is a peripheral or a gimmick that you will use sometimes, kind of like motion controls and that kind of stuff. It's just the better version. Like, and I completely agree with you with the whole like sitting on the couch and not standing. I think my favorite VR game I played was that Astrobot Rescue Mission. And the reason it was my favorite is because it's like a 3D platformer all around you, like you're in Mario 64. But you can do it sitting in your couch. You don't have to be standing at all. You can literally sit there. You're just playing with a normal controller. It's just the way you're seeing everything is VR. Like you're in the game instead of, it being in front of you on the TV. You're literally on the area and the guy's running around you. So
I think there's something to be said, like if there was a cheaper version that doesn't have like all the extra bells and whistles that require you for standing up, like if there ends up being like a VR headset that's more geared for couch experiences, like say like a Gran Turismo, which apparently is really cool in VR for those that have gotten a chance to try that, or like first person shooters where you can just use a controller but all you do is you control where you look. I think that's a really interesting way of doing it. If there's a way to balance that out, I think that's a solution to the problem of maybe not every VR has to be like built and designed to be like constantly moving around the room. Maybe we can design ones that are just meant to be for couch experiences only. I think that's kind of the thing too of like feeling it out. And I think that's what a large portion of VR gaming still is trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, and what we can improve upon to either make the experience better or if there's just certain things that we just can't get behind. Because, I mean, it might just be to a point that maybe VR gaming just doesn't work until we figure out what AR looks like going forward. Or, if we get way into the future where we're all dead and gone, assuming we are still on this planet by the time, this technology comes up, but having things like the holodeck, right? So I think that's kind of like the challenge here is trying to figure out specifically what VR is kind of supposed to be. And I don't even think we have an answer to that because I don't think we know specifically what the right vision for VR is because we're trying a bunch of different things right now and figuring out what sticks.
Well, I think the problem is that like you talk about it is like it's just waiting out while we figure out how to do things. But the problem is that this is not an infinite time situation, right? This is a chicken and the egg. Developers are not going to make games for like consoles, and I'm going to put consoles in brackets of like VR consoles, whether it's the Oculus, whether it's VR, like PlayStation VR, whatever. If no one's buying these consoles and no one's buying these games, developers are not going to spend their time and money making games for like consoles that don't have bases for them to purchase them. And if there's no games, then people aren't going to buy it. So like the problem is that there's a very short window of us to kind of figure this out and make it viable. Otherwise, we're going to have games drying up. And then, like we said, right now, there's no games to play on it or very few that we're not buying it. So I'm not going to drop my money on a system that has no games and no games are getting made for it because no one's putting money on these systems. So like it's not something where we can just kind of wait and see. Like there's a time limit. And I think that time is running out. Like I think this is probably the last chance that VR has. And if PSVR 2 doesn't take off, I don't know who's going to come out with a new system that people are going to be like, yep, that's the one.
It's hard to say, and I don't pretend to know the answer to it because
I do.
It's like if that was the case, then I would be making a shit ton of money working for these companies that were trying to figure out what the future is going to look like.
But did you apply at it?
Yes.
If you didn't apply, that's why you don't work there.
I mean, I've also applied to be a story writer for Square Enix, but they won't let me because all I keep saying is I'll do a new Chrono Cross game, and they go and rejected.
No Chrono.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I really want VR to succeed and stuff, but I'm losing faith as time goes on.
I think the framework's honestly there. It's just a matter of figuring out the most cost-effective way to do it. And I think because the way the technology is right now, in the same way that, the PS3 was so expensive because of Blu-ray back then, I think it's still that same way of we just need that one, breakthrough in tech that just makes this so much more cheap. So that way experiences like this can be done. Because I think, like I said, from what I see, I think this is a good baseline now for games. It's just a matter of can we A, make it affordable, and B, can we get enough people on board to do it? And if the answer happens to be no, then I guess it's going to die. But I mean, I hope that there's enough people that are willing to, even if it means cost them a little bit of money, to stick it out and see this because I see so much potential here if it can be done effectively.
Yeah. Yeah, my worry is it'll go like PSVR 1 where I won't get it until they've decided to discontinue it. And it's like, I mean, PSVR 1, I grabbed it for, I think, $250. Because Adam, you texted me and was like, hey, go grab it. It's $250. But the thing is, I love it. But I'm not willing to spend the current one for it. And I'm worried that I won't even get my hands on this until it's too late because it'll only go down in price because it's discontinued.
Yeah, and for the reason that it's so expensive, it's like, sure, if I had, double the salary that I make, I'm sure I could find money to spend to it. But at this point, I don't. So as somebody making the kind of money that I do, that's the thing with console gaming is that finding that balance for those that, are more of working class, you got to be able to figure that out. And I don't think the VR gaming right now is remotely close to even middle class at this point. So it's just a thing that we're gonna have to figure out. And if they don't, they don't. And that's just what we're gonna have to stick it out with and see what happens. That's all we can really do is just see, because I can't predict if it's gonna last or not. I really don't know at this point.
There you go.
But with that, we got one thing left here. Kaylan, do the bit.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are not big enough or rich enough to get games ahead of time, so we buy them on our own dime and play them on our own time, bringing you reviews when we can, as we can, making them untimely reviews. This week, we have an untimely review for Hogwarts Legacy. I haven't played it, so I'm going to duck out because I don't want any spoilers.
There's no spoilers. We're going to be nice and not spoil anything.
Fine. Okay, I will stick around.
We're only going to be talking about things related to the mechanics and the gameplay. So, obviously, I mean, unless you've been sleeping under a rock, Hogwarts Legacy is a Harry Potter game. I know, shocking. I was surprised too when I saw it. But, I said last week when, Chris, you weren't here, that I like the game. I don't get where, like, a lot of the 9s and 10s are coming from. Now I'm at the point that now that I've finished the game, I don't know where the 8s are coming from. In some cases, I don't know where the 7s are coming from. I wish that I could sit people down in a room, hear their thoughts about the game, and then force them to take the rose-colored glasses off and let them speak again. Because, granted, I don't have the same level of attachment to Harry Potter that a lot do. I mean, I watched a bunch of the films growing up as a kid. I read I think the first 2 books is as far as I did book-wise. But, like, I've know a lot about it, but I don't know nearly as much of, like, every, like, hardcore fans would do, or going to Universal Studios level to go into the wizarding world and do all that. But, like, I knew enough to be interested. I mean, obviously, the idea of being in this fantasy, magical setting and going to school is really cool. I mean, shit, I play Persona games. Of course I want to play a game where I get to be going to school and fighting crazy dark shit with magic and stuff. I'm super into that. But, as this game's kind of progressed, like, the one thing that I have said many times is that I genuinely feel like, as a base, this game is amazing, and I just wish that they had spent a little more time making it more interesting rather than just going for atmosphere. Because the world itself is amazing. The first few hours of being in Hogwarts, I didn't do anything except walk around, because it was just so cool seeing the Great Hall and seeing, the greenhouse area and going to all of these places that throughout the movies, if you read the books, what you internally thought everything looked like, getting sorted, going into your common room, all of that stuff, and just walking around and just getting a feel for everything. And then going to Hogsmeade for the first time and getting the, I guess, sort of Diagon Alley feel to it too. And now you have those 2 things. And all of that is amazing. And really, for lack of a better phrase, really makes you feel like you're at Hogwarts. And does a great job of it. But if I start tearing the game apart and criticizing the actual game, that's where I think things start to fall apart. Now, Chris, I don't know how you felt, because I think you're probably somewhere around, like, maybe a little past half the way through, based on what you've told me.
Yeah, I think I'm closer to, like, 75% through the main story.
I mean, without spoiling anything, how many trials have you completed?
3.
Okay, so I'd say you're probably around, like, 60-70% now. So, like, obviously, like, the atmosphere is fantastic. They actually did a great job, like, visually. It looks amazing, considering that we thought it was going to be a game that was going to probably look more like a PS3 game. But no, it looks pretty damn good for what it is. And they honestly nail everything down in terms of, what they could. I mean, obviously, a lot of people are mad that Quidditch isn't in it. But, I mean, let's be honest. It's an open world Harry Potter game. There was no way they were going to fit both in.
Yeah.
Or it was going to be, like, a really boring version where it was just going to be you racing against the snitch, really.
Oh, true.
But, like, the things that they do have, like, the classes are cool in the early goings. There's even, like, a cool couple of fun mini games. Like, there's that Summoner's Chord mini game with one of the spells where you pull the ball, almost like you're playing shuffleboard, but with magic, which is neat. They do a lot of neat things in the early going, and a lot of the stuff that they do with, early side questing, meeting people, like, they do all that very effectively. It's just once they start ramping up the actual main storyline, I find that they forget what they're supposed to be, which is a game about being a student at Hogwarts. Because by the time you really start ramping things up, it feels less like you're at school and more you're just next to the school.
Yes, I that is actually one of my complaints of the game 100% too. You like I think the big draw here is that like the Hogwarts castle was recreated in its full entire size, and you can go to classes and all this other stuff in the Great Hall, the library, everything. And they just keep constantly pulling you away from it. And it's like the main draw is Hogwarts, the Forbidden Forest, and Hogsmeade. Like that's it. Like go to the Three Broomsticks, have a butterbeer, go to classes and be in the school, see all the amazing secrets within the castle, and go to the Forbidden Forest. It's scary and there's crazy creatures there. And they keep pulling you away from those areas. It's all these other silly, I won't spoil anything, but like dungeons and stuff, or small towns that mean nothing. There's like 3 people who live there that are much further away, and they're just constantly pulling you away from it, which is easily what I dislike. I do not like any of those parts.
Yeah, the game suffers from open world syndrome where it has way too much to do and way too big an area. That map needs to be like 25% of what it is because there's so much dead air. Like you said, there's these small little villages that basically are just home to one shop that just is very bare bones and maybe a side quest or two if you're lucky. You know, there's a point to like for example, the spell to unlock locks. There are 3 levels. I never got to level 2 or 3 because I just didn't care about the collectibles you had to collect to get them. Because all I figured too is that what it's going to do is you're just going to open up more doors that lead to more treasure that lead to the same thing that's nothing. Because I don't know how you feel about the gear system, but I don't think the gear system makes any sense for the kind of game it's telling either. Because you're a student at Hogwarts, why would you be putting anything on except for your Hogwarts, like your robes?
Yeah, 100%. I keep getting the better equipment, obviously, because it has better stats, but you can change it instantly and to look like anything else. I just constantly am putting myself back to looking like a student.
I had
Like
the
there's a
same look the
couple
entire game. I never changed anything. The only thing that ever changed was a legendary pair of glasses just looked better on me. That's the only change I ever made. Everything else, the robes were the exact same all the way through.
I have changed my robes, but it's because there's eventually like 4 different
Yeah, there's
student
the
robes.
variations of like your
Yeah,
common robe, but like there's
yes,
one with like striping or like gold striping or things like that.
yeah.
But
So
like
I've
in terms
changed
of
that.
anything off
That's it.
color,
Yeah, no. Like you'll get crazy stuff and you look like a Renaissance wizard or something. It's like I'm the student. Like this is for when I'm older, when I'm later.
I literally saw on a subreddit that I subscribe to for cosplays within video games, and there's a picture of a guy who made like Agent 47 with the outfits. And my brain went, that's the problem. Why would you be Agent 47 in a friggin' Harry Potter game? It makes no sense. I could understand if you maybe had like, you know, if we're talking like stats for your gear, I could understand if it was like, say, your wand or, you know, things like that. But like, and if you had to have an outfit, like if there's an outfit, if you go outside of school, if you have like an outfit for that, that would make sense. But like, as soon as you're within school grounds, why are you wearing anything other than your robes? Do you think your professor is going to let you walk in looking like a cowboy with a friggin' like with dragon goggles and, you know, a dapper suit with a friggin' red cape on? No, he's going to kick your ass. He's probably going to
Yeah.
turn you into some sort of like puff skiing or something.
Yeah, that's definitely where the immersion would have been broken. And I mean, I have a feeling a lot of people playing the game are just putting it back to the student robes anyways.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you and me both did it without even talking to each other. So yeah, I definitely think that's one of the things.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of issues that I have. I'm gonna do a video at some point on my own channel to literally just go through a massive list of the problems I have. But like to me, the biggest ones is that for everyone who's saying that it really makes you feel like you're at Hogwarts, I question that immensely because I don't see that the same way. You're at Hogwarts, but you spend so much more time not at Hogwarts. And in
Yeah.
fact, like you don't really develop any relationships. I know that there are friends you can make in this game, but like you don't even really talk to your own common room folks that much. Like you start off the game in the common room, you spend 0 time in there. There's no
Yeah.
reason to be in your own common room. You barely spend any time in your classes, so you don't really talk to anybody. So like it feels less like you're going to Hogwarts so much as you were just forced to go to school, but in reality, all you want to do is go out and fight stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's way too much taken away from Hogwarts.
And again,
And
I think
again,
it
I
goes
get
into play of like because the world map is so big, it's impossible to not go away from Hogwarts because you have to
yeah.
do something with all of this map space you've created.
Yeah. And the thing is, they could have made it like Hogwarts is known as having, like, the castle itself, just so many secrets that no one person knows everything. They could have taken all the like little secrets and all the like open world gimmicks that they were trying to do on the map and just focused on the ones that were already in the castle.
Or they could have
Like,
cut them all because there's even so many secrets in the castle alone that already kind of makes it
yeah,
work because I never even finished all of them. I think I
yeah,
only did 9 of the tokens for those Daedalic keys or whatever they're called.
I got all of those, but I just happened upon all but one, and then my OCD was like, you can't not do one. You can't have 15 out of 16.
Yeah.
So I
But
went and
like
grabbed
they
that.
did a decent job at least within the castle that most things you can find on your own because you'll probably walk around the entire castle anyway throughout the course of the game. It would have been even easier had you actually spent a lot more time there anyway, but that is what it is. But like I think again, the big core of this game that I have a problem with is that they tried to do too much. And I think that was the worry that I had even initially with all the things they were showing off, where I went, I don't see how this works because it's going to suddenly turn to an open world game with too much to do. And for God's sakes, the Merlin trials alone, I didn't realize how many there are. There are 95 of them.
Wow. Yeah,
That's way too many.
I stopped at 18%. And I only started doing them because I know that's how you increase your gear slots, like how many things you can hold.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, when I run into those, I got to do them. And then I did a lot. I felt, I guess I probably did like 18 of them, about maybe just under. And I remember I was like, oh, this is probably the last one. And then I looked at the trophy progress and I was at 18%. I was like, are you kidding me? And then, of course, the map got bigger and I could actually see everything. I was like, hell no, there is no way. Like, they're not interesting. Like, they were interesting that if it was the smaller map where it was just the Hogwarts and Hogsmeade and Forbidden Forest area and they had like 10 of them and it still increased the gear slots, would have been fine. I would have enjoyed that for what they were. Like 10 of them would have been fine. That many? What the hell are you doing? Why are you locking how many items you can hold behind 95 of those trials? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and for everything that they did right, there were so many things that you just kind of look at and completely balances the scales to being back to, yeah, but they did this wrong too. Like, again, if you're a fan of Harry Potter, like the world is so cool. But then as soon as you get a broom to be able to fly around, you realize how barren the place is too. So like for the little bit of time when you're walking around and you don't go very far, it looks so amazing. And then as soon as you are able to fly and you go high enough to see what's there, you realize there's a lot of hills and not a lot to do in them. And what I found I did a lot was just go from fast travel point to fast travel point on the map just to make sure I had all these checked off so that if I ever needed to go there again, I could just fast travel and not have to worry about the amount of time that it would take to do.
Yeah. Yeah, because if it was that one area, like just the actual main like Forbidden Forest, Hogsmeade, and
Like Hogwarts up with that world map, I think is perfect for the amount of space.
Like people would want to fly instead of fast travel just to be in that area. Because again, Hogsmeade and Forbidden Forest and Hogwarts, flying around the castle, it's beautiful to see. And then everything south, it's like just copy paste, hills, grassland, and a town of 2 buildings.
Yeah, and then the last two, like again, like with the traversal, like, do you think the broom or like any of the mounts, do you think they're like they enhance like your travel at all, or are they just more of the same? Just it's walking but faster.
The broom was good. I've used the flying mount like once or twice, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Whenever I need to go somewhere and I can't fast travel, or I'm like, you know what, it's close, I'm just gonna go. Broom is always my go-to. Like I've done some of the beast collecting and some certain things that are in the open world, like just some quests and whatnot, and I'll use the broom because it is faster for sure than trying to run there. Um, but it's only something I like to do when it's in that main area, because as soon as it's further, it's just fast travel, fast travel, fast travel. I did the same thing as you. I went to all the different fast travel locations, unlocked them, so I didn't have to worry about that ever again, which was like annoying. Why you shouldn't have to do that in a game that's about, you know, the awe of everything you're seeing, like a Hogwarts castle.
Yeah, like I honestly think the Broom 2 should have had like a much more turbo mode. Like holding down both the triggers, I just still don't think it's fast enough. I think like that broom needs to be sped up at least 50% if you're going to turbo it, because it didn't feel like it was quick enough to justify the mount. Like at that point, it felt like I was walking at like a slightly brisker pace. It didn't feel like it was that much different. And I know a part of it is because like if you're really high in the air, the wind's hitting you. So I guess there's some realism to it. But like, I mean, take Spider-Man for example. How often do people fast travel when they play the new Spider-Man games? Not very much generally, because the traversing in that game is really fun and engaging to do.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't feel like the broom. It's just hold L2 and R2 to go faster, and maybe the odd time you turn the thumbstick so you turn. But that's it. There's not much else to it. Because at least with cars and driving, there's stuff to avoid. You're in the air. There's nothing to avoid. So you're just going. It's just endless. So it doesn't work in the same way.
Yeah, it being faster would have been nice. That I definitely
Yeah.
would have enjoyed the broom so much more if it was faster.
And then the last thing I would complain about that's not story related would be just the fact that there are way too many damn spiders in the game.
Yeah.
Like, there are other enemy types, but like if we're not counting dark wizards and the goblins, which are the big focal points of the game, spiders are third place, and it's not even close between third and fourth. Like I think fourth might be the frogs, and you barely see them.
Yeah, I can't even think what the fourth would be, because it's definitely the spiders is like number three, if not number one. Like I don't even know if they even like the amount of goblins and dark wizards even overtake the spiders.
They
Like to
also
be
have too
honest,
much health.
they do.
There's too
They
much
do.
sponginess to a lot of the enemies too, which I mean, towards the end of the game, I was slogging, and man, again, I said it last week too. They needed to give you an option if sure, maybe you don't get to combo, but let me hold down the right trigger so I'm not constantly doing this and destroying the tendons in my index finger, having to cast spells over and over because it takes so long to kill anything. And I'm pretty sure I can't remember if there was a difficulty setting or not. If there was, I put it on easy because I always put games on easy because I want to just I'm more interested in the story most of the time. The gameplay can be fun no matter what difficulty it's on for all I care.
Oh yeah.
But like by the time the game was over, my fingers did not like me at all. And I mean, like the spell variations are awesome. Like I didn't feel like I was geared to use only 2 or 3 spells the entire game. There's a pretty good selection. The only ones I never used were the dark arts ones, like the killing curses and stuff, because I didn't like the idea of my character doing that because I'm not Slytherin. Why would I? But every other spell had its own utility, so they did a great job in terms of that. Like the combat honestly is pretty solid. I just wish the controls were slightly optimized so that it wasn't nearly as trigger intensive.
Yeah, I was surprised they put it as the trigger. Normally in a game like that, you'd think it would have been just like square on the controller or X or something. I was surprised that it was the trigger because it's taking. I'm not even used to it still after like 27 hours of play.
But yeah, other than that, I mean, I don't know if you have any other things just to add as well, Chris, because I mean, for the most part, like I think a large part of why I've started to really dislike the game is because the story to me is just so like not interesting at all, especially by the time the game gets to its end.
I don't actually like I don't know if I fully agree with you on the main story, though I didn't get as far as you in it. My only issue is not that the story's not interesting. It's just that it takes you too much away from Hogwarts and stuff.
And that might be
Um,
why too that I have an issue with it.
yeah, like I think that if again they just cut off that 75% of the extra map for like Hogwarts Valley or whatever the heck all the bottom is called, they got rid of that and just took all the same missions and just put it up in the top, and then of course made everything to scale. Like instead of 95 Merlin trials, had 10 or 12 in that area, and kept it more in school and had more like going to class, like even if it is just cutscenes or you can go at any point or more of the side quests required you to go there. I think the game would have been a 9. Like taking into the stuff that it's kind of annoying, like the combat, which is still good. It's just trigger heavy, as you're saying. Some technical stuff, like there's some pop in and stuff in the game. I would have been fine with all that if all that extra open world bloat from the bottom half of the or bottom 75% of the map was just gone. I would have given the game easily the 9 out of 10 that everybody's giving it. Because just being in Hogwarts, the actual castle, is amazing. And going into Forbidden Forest and like everything else I've said. And again, if they focused every mission being related to that, it would have fixed everything for me that I have complaints for.
Yeah, I mean, if we're using our usual format of 6, it pains me to do this, but as a critic, I have to. It's a 3. And it's not to say that it's a bad game, but it's to say that the foundation is there, but so much of the execution, especially towards the later parts of the game, like, as soon as I got to around, I'd say, like, the second trial when I started that, I stopped caring about, like, I didn't do any side quest that wasn't an assignment or a relationship-based side quest. Everything else, if I came across a new Newt's village and they had a side quest, I went, nope, don't care. Don't give a shit about what you got for me. Because it just got to a point where it burned me out so badly because there's so much to do and it's not worth anything. Like, there's things you do for an astronomy class where you can go and check out these star maps and you line up the telescope. It's not interesting. There's nothing interesting about it. The Merlin trials get old after about the 10th one because you realize, oh, it's the same 3 things again and again. Yeah. And then you realize how many there are and you go, no, I'm good. There's a thing where you activate ancient magic and it's just find the couple of ones that we've put around this area. That's not interesting. So like, so much of the game suffers from what we've talked about different times on the show, where open world games are becoming too open, where they're not allowing for a more streamlined experience and direction. Instead, they just put checklist after checklist after checklist, and it grinds you out to the point that I don't even get to see the final cutscene because I never hit the level cap that I need to see it. So I had to YouTube it. That's stupid. For a game that I put almost 40 hours into and I don't get to see the final cutscene because I didn't do enough, that's a problem to me. There's a lot of things about this game that I like, and then there's a lot of games that really, really tick me off. And that's why I have to be really harsh with it, because I think a lot of people need to take a step back as well and really look at this as a game and not just let their fandoms create them, because I hope that I would be talking the same way about one of my favorite properties if it was made into a video game like this, because I hope that I would be able to look past that too and go, okay, I really like being here, but there is so much that they need to correct in this. And I think if they do a second game, I think there's a great foundation to build upon, but they need to drastically change what the game is to make it work in a much better scenario, to be considered up there with your God of Wars and your Horizons and games of that level, because I don't even think it's even close. The only reason that I think this game gets a big rating from a lot of people is because it's a decent game with a license that normally doesn't print anything good outside of Lego. The Lego Harry Potter games are generally good. Most other Harry Potter games generally don't turn out very well.
Yeah.
So I think there is kind of a critic bias in terms of scoring it because it just happens to be a decent Harry Potter game. And I don't think the decent Harry Potter game means 9s, 10s, or even 8s for that matter, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. And I think, like, if you're a hardcore Harry Potter fan, the game will eventually, at some price point, be worth it for you. You may not actually like the story and all the other map, but if you just want to walk around Hogwarts for like 6 hours, you can do it. Like, and it may even for you be more fun than the actual extra crap that the game has. You don't even really need to do most of the game. You can just walk around Hogwarts and explore it. That was still my favorite part, even as far as I am, finding secrets and exploring and being like, there's a hallway here? How have I never been here before? Oh my God, look at all the stuff in here. Like that, I think that part will be what people remember and holds up. And hopefully if they make a sequel, what they focus on in the next game.
Yeah, I think Avalanche has proven that they're able to tackle this. It's just now that, they've had a trial, like, I guess we can call it a trial run, but now that they have a fully fledged game out, I hope that all the criticisms and all of the suggestions that are laid against it can cause them to look at this the next time they do, whether it's another Hogwarts game or if it's something else that's open world. Maybe they look at this and go, okay, maybe we should try this next time. But at the end of the day, me saying it's a 3 out of 6 does not mean you shouldn't play it. Because if that was the case, I'd give it a 2 or a 1. Then we could talk a different story here. But the reason I give it a 3 is because there's way too much wrong with it, in my opinion, that I have to take enough points off to equal that out. I can in good conscience give this a 5 for sure. If I give it a 4, I think I'm saying it's above average. I honestly think this is pretty average. Like, if I was a big fan of the Harry Potter, like if I was a super hardcore fan, I'm sure I could justify the 4 in my head. But because I'm more of like sort of there and know a little bit here and there, it's more of like I don't have the same value to it. And I think if you are a Harry Potter like super fan, you will enjoy this game no matter what the price point is. You're in. That part is fine. Anybody outside of that, half off, wait for it. Honestly, half off minimum. Because maybe by then they'll patch it a bit better too, and it won't be nearly as buggy as well, because there's a lot wrong with it. Even like one of the minor things, the voice pitch, I messed with mine and turned it down one step, and I feel this weird vibration every time he talks that it feels like something's wrong.
Yeah,
it's very distracting.
Yeah, I read on an article where it was like, just don't touch the voice pitch, because up or down there's something off. Like, it doesn't sound like another voice. It sounds like somebody's voice has been altered with
it sounds like it's been put in a modulator.
Yeah. So just leave the voice as is, which I did, which I'm very happy I read that article, because I don't know how it would have survived.
Yeah. But like straight up, game is fantastic in terms of it looks and breathes Hogwarts. It does exactly what it sets out to do. The cast of characters that they have are pretty decent for what, a game that's open world and generally don't have a lot of memorable characters tends to have. I think there's enough there to build upon. I just think that as a game, mechanically, there are a lot of poor decisions that may not even be based on like what they wanted to do. It may just be what an open world game kind of demands these days, and that you have to have all these collectibles and checklists worth of stuff to do. But like, I do think that this game is actually pretty good for what it is. But like with a critical eye, I have to just say that it's average at best, because there's so much that it does to spite itself, even though it does such a good job at what it does very well on.
Yeah. I probably would give it a 4 from where I am right now, but that's because I do have the Harry Potter fandom, and like the 2 that I'm taking off is fully for everything that is below Hogwarts Castle or like south of all that area, and then the 4 points are purely for that one area. Like, it's enough that my fandom is like, no, this is amazing. Hogwarts Castle is too amazing. It gets 4 out of 6 basically for the castle and like Hogsmeade and the Forest. That's it.
So yeah, I think that's it. Jonah Jameson, are you there? Are you still kicking?
Still here. I'm still here.
I mean, we went like a good 20 minutes, and you just kind of sat back and just dealt with it. I'm sure you were doing nothing else, and just listening with bated breath for everything that we were talking about.
Clung to every word.
Yeah.
But I mean, long story short, guys, like it's worth your time if you're a super fan. And then if you're just a casual person on the outside, I'd wait for it to drop a little bit. But I still think it's a good game to go to get into. I think it's certainly better than a lot of other games on the market in the open world genre. I think there's I would take this above an Assassin's Creed game right now, for example.
100%.
And it's not even a question. It's still to say that there's a lot of the same problems that Assassin's Creed games have in terms of the open worldness of it. But I think they did a really good job of capturing the essence of the series. And now it's just a matter of, if they do decide to make a sequel, to make it less of, I guess, a lifeless open world, and start to really make it feel like the magical world that, honestly, the Harry Potter series deserves.
Yeah. Hundo P.
So yeah, that's my review. And I know Chris will be finishing it probably in the next week or so, and then maybe at some point we'll sit down and really hammer out all the story issues that I personally have. I don't know how much you'll have compared to what I do, but man, if we're talking spoilers down the road, I got a list. I got a big old list.
Of course you do. Yes, you do. You definitely do.
Were there any questions that you had about the game going in, Kaylan, or you just pretty much like you already have an idea of what you're looking for?
No, I'm going in blind.
You're going in straight blind?
Yep. Yeah, so my wife is a big Harry Potter fan, so we're probably gonna get it for her, and if it's in the house anyways, I'm gonna play Dead Space and then jump onto Hogwarts Legacy after. So it's an inevitable buy for us. So
yeah, and if she's a super fan, she'll love it. Like there's no question.
Yeah. Well,
I guess with that, that's that. So, with this being the end of the show, thank you so much, everybody, for checking us out this week. So, if you don't already do so, if you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, you should be doing that. So, make sure you're searching PixelPlay Podcast on YouTube and subscribing to us there. Obviously, liking the video if you also watched it on that platform as well. And same goes for if you're listening to it on any audio platform such as Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, Google, whatever you may be. If you can rate us, please give us the old 5-star there. And then obviously, if you're looking to either join our Discord, send us an email for questions, or if you just want to see what's going on generally with our socials, Linktree/PixelPlayPodcast is where you can get all of that information. That is linktr.ee/PixelPlayPodcast. So, we'll see you guys next week. I'm all but certain the review streak is going to end because I don't know what the heck I'm going to play and finish in a week at this point, unless I just pick some random ass game that I know is going to take me 4 hours to beat. But at this point, nothing's kind of there. So this is going to be really interesting trying to figure out what this next week's going to be. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't have a review. What are we going to do, guys? I'm scared.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. We'll have to cancel the show. I don't even know.
That's fair. I mean, we're getting pretty close to 100, but who needs to hit that milestone? But that is it for us, everybody. You enjoy the rest of your day wherever and whenever you are listening to us. And we will see you, I want to say live next week, but given the way things are right now, that is a coin toss every single time we start right now. Because between Kaylan's camera and my system not wanting to record and stream at the same time, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But with that,
I'm trying my
take
best.
care, everybody. Yeah, I know you're trying your best, Mr. I want camera with no delay. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Do the face.
Take care, everybody. See you on the next one.